Let's start. Okay, so what I want to learn with you, I've sent out these sources on the WhatsApp group, is a piece from the Likutei Halachos, which is Rabbi Nosson, who was a student of Rav Nachman Breslev, and he gives some very deep and beautiful understandings to the general things that we do within Judaism, but he shows us the deep psychological and mystical value that's found within it. And I think it's particularly relevant to our circumstances in the world, particularly, where we see that the general sentiment that people are feeling is quite a state of despondency, quite a state of depression, and we need to try to understand how to deal with this. Okay, what is the Jewish approach to these emotions, to these experiences, to these circumstances that we find ourselves in? Kenny, I just ask you to mute yourself unless you want to say something, but lovely to have you. Welcome.
Thank you, Rama. Sorry.
Okay, so this is what he says. Inyan matzah. The aspect of matzah. So I'm going to read a little bit to you. Then, if you have something you want to add or something you want to discuss with us, please, just add. Let's see what he says. Al pi ma shekosav Rabbeinu Ner Yair, shasimcha hi refuah lekol hachaloyos. He says that the most powerful antidote for any sickness, the most fundamental and vital antidote for any sickness, any affliction, is that called simcha. Simcha. What's simcha? Simcha is happiness, state of happiness. So he says, Ki kol hachaloyos ba'in min hakilkula simcha. All sickness comes from one place. All sickness comes from one place. Not just a random circumstance, not just a biological, physiological, randomized circumstance. But if a person essentially is lacking within the state of simcha, which is joy or happiness, all sickness, God forbid, comes upon such an individual. Ki asara minei defikin mekablin chiyus min asara minei negina, shehi mechinas simcha. Gam kosav al posuk sosem simcha isigu menasu yago manacha, sheika shleimus simcha. Now, this is a very important point, okay? Many people feel a state of joy or feel a state of happiness when things are as they expect, or things go the way that they expect them to go, and things seem stable, and things seem correct, and things seem right. But what the Rabbi Nosson Breslev is teaching us here is, in fact, the greatest expression of happiness is when we are able to coerce the aspects of yagoin va'anocha. Yagoin va'anocha is the state of despair and the state of giving up into the framework of joy, into the framework of happiness. That a person essentially is able to find joy and able to find a place of resonance in their life and able to find a state of happiness, of simcha, even though the circumstance around them seems to be one of yagoim va'anocha. Okay, that's going to need some serious interpretation. Welcome, Hilton.
Hi there.
So now, what is our essential work when it comes to the work of simcha? And Rabbi Nachman teaches that the most essential avodah, which is the service or the essential work of a person, needs to be to work on their state of happiness, state of joy. Now, he explains what is the most vital expression of this. So he says it's to be able to take, lachtoif means to grab, the yagoin ma'anacha, which is the state of despondency, the state of total, giving up, and drawing it into simcha, bringing it into the world of simcha. שגם היגון והנוחה יש שמח לאחרי כל היגונוס והנוחה יש לשמחה, כדי שנעשה היגון והנוחה מרכבה לקדושה. To almost transform the state of despondency, depression, fear, doubt, anxiety into that of almost a service of God, that it itself has become the chariot to serve God by finding joy within it. Okay, so essentially what we're talking here about is finding the light that exists within the dark. And the majority of humanity believes that only light is found in circumstances of light. So if we have circumstances where everything is clear and everything makes sense and everything is moving upwards, then we can be happy. But what we're learning here is the essential expression of joy. Real joy, how's it, Clyde? Real joy, real happiness, real simcha actually needs to be discovered within darkness, within doubt, within states which would generally be conducive towards feeling anxious or feeling worried, which gives us a lot of insight into why circumstances like we are experiencing as a humanity is taking place, why things like this are happening in everyone's specific lives. What are we there to do? What is the purpose of this? Why does God want this to happen? And essentially, what we're understanding from this teaching is the purpose of all these circumstances is to essentially serve God with joy. And serving God with joy is essentially finding a place of joy, a place of resonance, a place of certainty, a place of sanctity within a person, which despite all of the circumstances externally, they're able to reach, they're able to discover. Okay, so before we continue, I want to just see if this somewhat resonates or makes sense with the individuals that we have here so far, and if you have any ideas of how to access this, So again, for those that have just joined, I'll read you one verse from Rabbi Nachman and what he's teaching us here. He says that the essence of serving God is through happiness, through simcha, to which we learned that all sickness, all negativity stems from a lack of happiness, a lack of joy. Okay, that's what we saw. All sickness, all affliction stems from a lack of happiness. Now then he comes along to say that we have circumstances in our lives, and Hashem should bless us that we shouldn't have many of these circumstances, and we should be guarded from Yagoin Vanocha. But we have circumstances which seem to be states of despondency, states of fear, states of anxiety, states of unsurety. And what he's saying is the essential expression of happiness is actually discovered in those moments, is actually discovered in those places of darkness. That to truly experience the essence of joy, the essence of simcha, is to be able to discover it and maintain it and experience it, even when the external circumstances lead to that of yagoin v'anacha, of despair, despondency, and fear. So that's nice in theory. We have yet spoken about how to access that and how to experience that. But before we continue, does anyone want to add something here? Hilton, how are you feeling about this concept?
Rabbi, I came in a bit late, so I'd rather not comment at this particular point in time and leave me, and I will come in a little later.
Okay, good. Gerald, are you still with us, or has Ashna?
Oh, I'm here, but
has Ashna enveloped you?
No, Ashna's here. She won't say a word. I'm confused. I just don't know. I can't see how this concept of happiness at a time of despair can really materialize. It doesn't make sense to me.
Okay, good.
Because the reality at the end of the day is you are so down that the opportunity for you to be happy just, you get swamped by it.
Yeah.
You get swamped by the negativity.
100%. And this is a very valid point that you're expressing, and essentially there's so much to point to give us experiences or emotions of feeling down. I mean, just before this class, Sarah and I were sitting by the computer watching a live stream of her brother's wedding in Joburg, which we couldn't attend because of this the circumstances that are taking place now in the world. So we could easily sit here and be in a state of despondency and despair and affliction and feel completely overwhelmed, as I'm sure the majority, if not all of humanity, is feeling. But what we're learning here is there is a reality called simcha, which transcends all of these circumstances. That a person is able to tap into joy and happiness and a feeling of connection, despite all of the dissonance that may be experienced externally. Let's try and understand what this is, okay, what this concept is. What I'm going to do is read just one line from the next paragraph, and then I'm going to skip down to the next paragraph, okay?
Can you just tell us which paragraph you're on?
It starts with a daled. It says, V'hinei geulas Mitzrayim. V'hinei geulas Mitzrayim.
Got it.
Okay. V'hinei, for those that don't have the sources, again, you can find them in your WhatsApp message I sent out earlier. V'hinei geulas Mitzrayim ikara alidei simcha. So it's insane. But he says the aspect of redemption from Mitzrayim, the redemption from Egypt, essentially what that means is that what the affliction of Egypt is a feeling of constriction, feeling completely constricted. And that constriction, I mean, on a very basic level, is that you got nowhere to move. You can't move anywhere. And in that sense, we are very much privy to that type of experience in terms of where we are as a humanity. But on a deeper level, the experience of Mitzrayim is a state of almost feeling caged by one's existence, in the sense that you don't know how to free yourself. So people are concerned about their finances, they're concerned about their safety. They're concerned about a number of frameworks which they don't have a way out. They don't know how to find a way out. How do you find a way out? What do you do? How do you do anything in the circumstances that we're in? Okay? Am I clear for everyone so far? Have I not gone a little bit, the internet's clear for everyone so far?
It seems to be fine on my side.
Okay, good. All right, thank you for that, Hilton. So he says that the essential redemption, the essential leaving of these places of constriction is through happiness. Meaning we are going to be trying to find avenues of escaping the cage of our experience now. We are going to try and find ways of legitimizing our experience, or coming to find some logical way out of this. And essentially, there is no way. There is no way. We are in a situation at the moment where it doesn't seem that we have any clarity of how to get out of the hole that we're in. Yes, we have a certain amount of time that we can wait, and yes, something, there'll be a vaccine or whatever it is, or some way to heal this virus. But at the moment, it's very uncertain. So essentially, we are caged. We are in an experience of being in Egypt on a deep existential level. But he says the only way to get out of it is through simcha, meaning every single person has a key inside called simcha. Ki simcha hi oilam acherus. And essentially what simcha is a state of freedom. Freedom. Being in a world of freedom. Now, what a person may experience when there's financial security, and there's security in terms of their daily activity, and there's security in what they do on a day-to-day level, then they essentially define their lives as one of freedom. Meaning, if I have sufficient amounts of whatever I need, health, wealth, well-being, whatever it is, time, then I essentially feel an essence of chayrus. Chayrus means freedom. I'm not caged by anything. And that's some form of an experience of simcha. So the joy that a person would have when they were told that they've won the lottery, or when they've gotten a raise, or when they've done an amazing deal at work, or whatever it may be, that happiness, what is it essentially? What it is essentially is an experience of freedom. That's what simcha is, freedom. Okay, so now he says on the opposite, the essential, he brings a verse to say that simcha is the essence of expansion or freedom. That's what happiness is. The ikar galus. Now the essential galus, which means the state of feeling exiled. How does a person feel exiled? It's through one thing, alidei atzlus, which is depression. And if we would understand what depression is, it is a state of feeling totally constricted, totally bound, totally unable to feel any state of freedom or knowing how to get out of the cage, the proverbial cage that a person may be existing in, through, again, whatever concepts they've created, such as finance, health, circumstances that may surround it. Okay, so now we have yet to try and understand how to redeem ourselves from this experience of yagoin v'anacha, of this experience of despair and despondency. We've yet to understand what is the key. Okay, we understand happiness is the key. But Gerald said very, very, I think, saliently, that essentially when a person is bombarded by circumstances, what do you want from them? How are you meant to find joy? How are you meant to find happiness? I mean, it's a little bit, bit of a large ask here. So does anyone have any suggestions before we look at the suggestion of Rabbi Nachman or the Rabbi Nosson? Yeah? Kenny, you want to suggest something then?
Not always from phone.
Okay, Kenny's on another wave. You got there. You got
No,
suggestion?
sorry, I don't have anything to add to it. I'm just listening to it, but I don't have anything to add. Sorry.
Okay. Richards, Clivey, how are you, buddy? You got any suggestions for us?
I've just joined, so I'm seeing. Yeah, I'm just. Okay. All right. So let's jump straight into Rabbi Nosson there to try and see what he suggests. Okay. This is the suggestion. Okay, we're now on the next paragraph. It starts with an aleph. V'zehu mitzvah achilas matzah. V'zehu mitzvah achilas matzah. Ki matzah bechinas simcha. He says, this is really the experience of eating matzah. This is why we eat matzah. Let's see what Jacques suggested here. Only possible through emunah. Okay, good. Let's try it. Very good. So Jacques is suggesting that simcha is really a state that is accessed through emunah, which means when a person experiences a state of, listen, I have absolutely no clue how I'm going to get out of this, and I have absolutely no clue of what's going to happen, but I have to almost resign myself and give myself up into the arms of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to know that I'm safe, to know that everything that will happen to me is for my best, and that that everything's going to be okay at the end of the day. Just relax, you know. If you think about all of the things that we've worried in our lives, and I'm sure you can fill a number of rooms with buckets of those experiences of worry and anxiety about the things that we've worried about and we were anxious about. I mean, how many of them have materialized to actually have any consequence? At the end of the day, we have to understand that we are in the hands of Hashem, in the hands of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And really, there's nothing to worry about. We have to do our job, we have to do our part, and the rest is in the hands of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, that's a very valid point, Jacques. But I'll tell you, and this is coming from a rabbi, it's not an easy thing to attain. It's really not. You know, when a person is very much confronted with an endless amount of bombardment or circumstances of doubt, yes, as we speak about it now, for maybe some momentary respite, we can feel a state of, yes, you're actually right. Listen, what are we worrying about? How much should we worry about actually materializes? You're right. But Rabbi Nachman's going to give us an antidote, which will give us an avenue of experiencing a state of simcha. Let's have a look. Let's understand. So he says, Ki matzah bechinas simcha. Matzah represents simcha. I mean, I don't know how many of you thought about that, but when I generally think of matzah, I think about that type of experience of sitting there crunching that matzah. Depends how fresh it is. You know, that's the type of experience of if it's joyful or not. I mean, when on earth do we say that matzah has the representation of happiness? I mean, that's the last symbol in Judaism that we would point to say that's happiness. Are you with me? What's matzah got to do with happiness? Yeah? Anyone want to suggest that? You're all a bit timid tonight. We need to give you some whiskey before Pesach. Yeah, that's a good avenue.
Told everybody to mute.
Oh yeah, I've got everybody. But you can unmute yourself if you've got something to offer. We want your contribution. We just don't want the background noise. Gerald, yes. Why don't we ask Ashna? What's Ashna suggest?
She's left the room.
I can't believe it. Yes. Look at that Zoom. That is so cool. That brings me joy just seeing that. You know, that Zoom itself, I think, is an antidote. Yeah. How can anyone suggest? How does matzah represent a state of joy? Martin, do you have any suggestions? Difficult one. Yeah. All right. So let's see what Rabbi Nachman says. Shematzah merames al tikkun hamoyach. Matzah comes along to hint to the fixing up of our brain, the fixing up of our thoughts. Wow, that's a pretty interesting one. Never thought that matzah came to do that. Imagine, you know, a guy goes to the therapist, the psychologist, and he says, you know, I'm having issues. I've got these constant thoughts of anxiety and fear and depression. So he gives him, instead of a box of whatever he gives him a box of matzahs, you know, not any type of matzah. This is shmura matzah, you know, and that's going to heal him from his illnesses, from his mentality, from how he's thinking or how she's thinking. So how does matzah heal us? What's matzah got to do? How does it have something in it that's an antidote? So he says, "Shetzarich lishmor hamoyach mechometz shelo yachmetz es moichay b'machshavos v'hirhurim." Wow, it's a very, very powerful concept. Okay, what he says is the following: every single person has circumstances that they have an opportunity or a reason to worry. Every single person. There is no one in this world that is exempt from worry. No one. Not one person. Kenny, I'll answer your hand there. You go. You put up your hand for a reason. You're just playing around with the buttons. I'll assume you're playing around with buttons, unless you wave. If you have something you want to say, Kenny, you wave to us, all right? Because you're still mute, and you look like you're barking or something. Okay, so now, how does matzah come along to teach us the essential essence of what it means to be happy? Where is happiness found? So comes along Rabbi Nachman to teach us the secret way of discovering happiness. So the majority of humanity, and again, I'll probably put 99.9% of humanity, including myself and including most of humanity, is that we're going to find happiness in clearing the circumstances around us that they create a state of security, that our mind doesn't need to worry or stress about anything. Okay, that's how the majority of people think. And you can think in your own life, and it's probably very difficult to think about moments where you had nothing to worry about. Okay, does anyone here have nothing to worry about? Everyone has things to worry about, every single person. Okay, you think when you're young, you're going to make enough money, that when you're old, you have nothing to worry about. But trust me, not that I'm there yet, but I'm sure you are able to share with us that no matter what circumstance a person is in, no matter what age they are, no matter what situation in life they're in, there are always reasons to worry. Always. So how are we meant to find happiness? How are we meant to find that joy? So he says that there's a secret, and the secret is the following. Every person, essentially, at their core, is actually in a state of happiness. Their innate way of engaging with the world is that with resonance and joy and happiness. Meaning to say that if a person isn't bombarded by thoughts, isn't bombarded by looking outside of themselves of what do I need to get, isn't bombarded by what do I need to surround myself by, but they just draw deeply into the essential part of who they are and what is there already, then what Rabbi Nachman is telling us is that their inner state and their most natural state is a state of joy. Most people think that their most natural state is a state of anxiety, negativity, and they need a reason to be happy. They need a reason to celebrate. They need a reason to be tapped in. What we're seeing here is essentially there is no reason to be happy because there's always a reason to be happy. The essential nature of a person is to be happy. A person really, one of the most natural things is to be in a state of happiness and smile. Now, what he says then is that the key is matzah. Because what the problem with chametz is, which essentially is the epitome of depression and fear and anxiety, what the chametz represents is that you allow the chametz to ferment. You allow the bread to grow into this thing. It just grows and grows and grows and expands. And the same thing can happen with the mind. If we don't guard our minds from thoughts, and what I'm saying here, what Rabbi Nachman is saying is, it's not that you stop thinking, but we make a clear distinction between being present in our lives and being taken by what we refer to as the chametz, which is the fermentation of the mind. Now, the mind loves to ferment with negativity, and it loves to ferment with fear, and it loves to hone into troubles. That's why we love to constantly look at this and see what's coming up that can tell us what's negative, what's next to worry about. And we kill ourselves in the process. But what Rabbi Nachman is saying here is essentially, what is matzah? Matzah is stopping the fermentation. Matzah is saying enough negative thinking, enough constantly looking for external things to bring a state of joy. But essentially, we are in a state of joy. So he says that's why matzah is referred to as lechem oini, the bread of speaking. That we say a lot of things over it, almost that our voices are heard through the matzah. To teach us the following, that it's impossible to tap into spirituality if we are being bombarded by negative thinking and we are bombarded by our thoughts that are constantly coming into our minds about what's going wrong and what can go wrong. It is impossible to tap into our relationship with Hashem and impossible to tap into the essential spirituality that is there. Parenthetically, matzah, and this is brought down by the Maharal and Isaac Chover, who teach us that matzah is lechem oini. Oini also means the bread of affliction. So now that's a hectic thing to think about. How is the same thing that is a representation of joy and happiness, how is that also referred to as the bread of affliction? What's one thing got to do with the other? So Rav Yitzchak Isaac Chover explains the following, and in the 4 minutes that we have left, we'll conclude with this concept. And that is to recognize that really we don't need a lot to actually feel a state of happiness. Lechem oini means when a person is afflicted, to realize affliction means that a person doesn't need a lot. Oini is a state of poverty, but it's realizing that a person doesn't need a lot to actually be happy. Happiness is innate and is automatically there within a person. Yes, we've bombarded ourselves and created this membrane of thickness that prevents us from experiencing it. But what Rabbi Nachman is saying is practically, when you're feeling yourself being bombarded by negativity and you're not feeling the inner joy that's innately there inside of you, realize that it's time to stop existing on the plane of thoughts. Stop finding the self within concepts and within thinking. But there is a state of being which is called being totally present and being in life. Actually being or experiencing life beyond thought, being present without thinking, actually experiencing the vitality of life without constantly worrying about the next experience. And it means drawing deeply into what you have in front of you now. Otherwise, there's no joy to be found apart from constantly searching for it in the future. And when the future seems dull, dim, and dark, then gewalt, how are we going to find happiness? There's so much at bay, there's so much to worry about. But when we realize that happiness is not found in front of you, not found in the future, that it's already inside of us. And all we need to do is strip away the thinking, number one, and strip away our expectations, number two, to realize happiness is innate. Then we tap into matzah. Matzah that we're able to tap into our spirituality. Spirituality that doesn't need anything. You don't need anything. And this is how he concludes, as a much more that he says, but through this, i.e. through the state of matzah, through the state of mitzvahs achilas matzah kidei lezakos hasimcha lidei achila kadosh kazoi. And thus he goes on, and I want to conclude with this, back to our initial point of what we said, the essential expression of happiness is found in moments of yagoim ve'anacha, found in moments of darkness, when a person is able to find the light within the darkness, when a person is able to almost remove a reliance on the external to bring them a state of joy. I mean, imagine an individual, God forbid, that has been constricted to a hospital bed, tied up to all different machines and tubes in order to give that person life. Imagine the day when that person is given the freedom to walk out of that hospital and experience life not attached to anything. That is one of the happiest days possible. Now, in understanding that, we're understanding that essentially within ourselves, we have the same thing. That the way that we've been living life has been that we've been connected to so many things that we've decided need to provide us with happiness. And now when we're confronted with circumstances which seemingly are looking to strip away some elements of that happiness, we fall into depression, God forbid. We fall into despondency. We fall into fear and anxiety. But the discovery is to realize that happiness is already within us. It is accessible no matter what we have. Yes, we're going to rely on Hashem. He'll give us what we need, i.e. we need food, we need health, we need to live, we need to be able to be involved. Some of the Kabbalists say even that we don't need. Even to forfeit the expectation to live is one of the highest states of happiness. Not even expecting to live